Hi everyone, welcome to our Dardi podcast. We're really happy to have our podcast coming from Dardi Munwarrow, and we're coming out to the community, getting guests in to get to know our community more. I'm Shirley Hood, Nyunga Kernai Gundich Jamara, and I'm so happy to be here at Dardi. Brr. I'm really pleased to and privileged to introduce our first guest for Dardi, and that is Mr. Alan Coe. Hello, Uncle Alan Coe, how are you?
Hey, how are you going, mate? I'm well, how are you going, right?
Yes, really well. Great to have you on board here.
Right.
And just to introduce, let everyone know who's your mob, Unc.
Okay. Well, I'm Warrigunya Warriors Home, right? And my mother was also married too. But I grew up in Sydney and across the nation because Dad was a pastor. And then I moved down to Lakes Entrance in 13, all right?
Yes, right, great. So you cover quite a lot of country,
Yes,
eh?
I have, Sissy, yeah.
Yeah, and I know for a fact, like, in our travels, we've always sort of travelled and caught each other on different places,
Yes.
digs and on trains. We've had yarns.
Yeah.
So tell us, what sort of life is Alan Coe living?
Well, when I moved to Lakes in 13, I was an alcoholic and a drug addict. But and that time I connected with my granddaughter I hadn't seen for 7 or 8 years. And she's going on 15, and I started to think about her and her sisters and brother, and I started to think about what's my legacy for them and for other Aboriginal kids, and I realised I didn't have one. And so then I gave up and I got involved in community, and that's when I got in contact with Dardi Munwarrow, because Alan was going down to Fulham prison, and I hooked up with Lakes Entrance Aboriginal Health Association, and that's how I met Alan. And so I started getting involved with them going into Fulham, and then.
Which is great because Fulham Prison has a lot of our people in
Yeah, a
Fulham
lot of
Prison.
our men in there, right? And sadly we have the highest incarceration rate in the world.
Yes.
And so going into Fulham was, it was good to go and talk to men, but the sad part was seeing men go home and you go back a couple of months and they're back in. So the recidivism is very high.
Yes.
Right? And that's, and as you know, I'm here to have a yarn about Warrigunya today.
Yes, Warrigunya is a big place with helping our healing and recovery.
Yeah, that's the purpose.
Warrigunya.
And so it's being built right now as we speak, and the name was chosen by the men in Fulham at the time, and it's 2 words, Warra, which came from Warrigal and the word warrior, and Gunya, which is a term meaning house. So there was a warrior's home, and the men in Fulham also chose the shape of the home, and the shape of the home is a pelican coming into the land. And the reason it's a pelican because the Gunai Kurnai, the pelican is their totem, born, as you know.
That's right. I'm Warra.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
so that's their totem. So that's how everything came about. Right?
Yes, that's fantastic shape, and it's coming from the land and from the animals.
Yes,
it's a connection.
And that's you just said it. That's the whole purpose of Warrigunya. Is for the men to connect to themselves, to their land, to their community, to their families, and hopefully in the process of being at Warrigunya, where they'll be able to be there for up to 12 months, right? They can access their needs to heal holistically. One of the problems of our people with the intergen PTSD and every other thing that's came in onto our country since settlement, right, which has caused a divide, caused pain and suffering, right? Not only just physically but spiritually, mentally, right? The trauma and trauma's intergenerational, as you know.
Yes.
See, so these things have been ongoing, and this is why we have high rates of incarceration, high rates of dom violence, high rates of AOD problems, and these are all problems that relate to trying to deal with the trauma that our ancestors have been through, and that a lot of us have been through.
Yes.
Like many of us know people who've come from the stolen generation.
Yes.
And so these traumas, they run through our psyche like the blood runs through our veins, right? And the healing is a process that we have to try and sort out ourselves, because we know our problem, right? And that's the purpose of Warrigunya. And hopefully, go on.
No, that's really important, because I found that when a lot of non-Indigenous people try and work with our issues, they need to take 10 weeks break over what they heard, let alone dealing on the ground with it.
That's right.
Like Warrigunya, that has to be, you're working toward that being an Aboriginal place for Aboriginal healing.
Yes. And we know from history tells us, and from the fact that how many policies and how many procedures has governments put in place to try and bring healing to our people, to try and help our people, yet they continue to miss the mark. And in the process of missing the mark, they continue to waste money, right? And so we know ourselves, and it's happening all over the country right now as we speak, that Aboriginal people are taking control of their healing, and they are seeing the healing. And I know that up on countries where they still live tribal traditional way, they have the nunkeries, and those processes are being brought into the broader society now too, right, in different areas of the country. So again, that's that spiritual healing that our people, right, have had for centuries, right? And so Warrigunya, we're hoping, and we foresee that it will be a place for men to sit down on country, to be involved in their healing, to reconnect to culture, right? To reconnect to families and communities, right? And start to heal, you know? And to deal with the fact of getting their life and their structures where it needs to be. And one of the things I realise is, you know, before in our families, and you know yourself, when we were growing up as kids, the family was strong in the structure, and it was the backbone of our communities and our society.
Yes.
But we live in a society where there's so many things coming in from the outside that are tearing the families apart. And not only our families, we see it in mainstream families. And you only have to look at the fact that there's little groups and little cliques, and they're all going and associated because they're not getting the love where they're supposed to get it, and they're all looking for love in all the wrong places. Well, we need to get that back to our families and our communities.
Yes.
Right? Because you know yourself, and I know, when we were growing up, remember the days of children be seen and not heard?
That's right.
And we used to sit around in the lounge room, and the elders would talk, but the space was a happy and a safe space. Right? And we need to get back to that. And we're hoping that Warrigunya, through men connecting with the land, right, connecting with their culture, their stories, their songs, right, can bring that back into being.
That's right. And we need to understand that as our way of surviving and healing.
That's exactly right.
Together. You said yourself that you gave up drinking and everything. What sort of paths did you take? Were there lots of places out there for you?
Well, I was very fortunate because I was in Lakes Entrance, right? And the first thing I done, I went down to the medical centre, Lakes Entrance Aboriginal Health Association, Lehigh, you know Lehigh.
I know Lehigh,
right? And through Lehigh I connected with Alan, right?
Yes.
But the fact that the health service was there, right, so it was an Aboriginal health service where Aboriginal health providers were servicing and providing the health needs of Aboriginal people, right? And we know, we only have to look at our history of health services. every Aboriginal health service across this country, right, began because Aboriginal women, right, did not see the provision of services from when they went to hospitals and doctors, right, to try and get something sorted, and doctors back in those days thought, oh, they're just lazy, they making out, they sick and things like that, because they didn't understand our trauma, right?
Yes.
And so Aboriginal Health Service provide the health provisions and the needs from the holistic perspective, because we understand what's going on in here, what's going on in here, right?
Yes.
And in the core of our being. And this is the same for men and for women too, right? Women coming out of incarceration. The support
Absolutely.
mechanisms and structures are not in place to provide and fulfil their needs. And so we hope, it's our vision, that Warrigunya will do that. Now some people say, you know, that Warrigunya's not an Aboriginal organisation, but we have many Aboriginal people on our board, right? And we have support of non-Aboriginal people. Now, we have a look and we see government departments, a lot of non-Aboriginal people in those government departments facilitating services to Aboriginal people alongside Aboriginal people. So what's the difference, right? And I always say this, if you can tap into someone that can help you do what you need to do, right, then tap in. Now, I've got support from a lady who's a dynamo, right? And yet people look at her, she's some kind of do-gooder, right? Now, this lady took herself to uni, right? And came in to help, and she's done a lot of running around for Warrigunya, right? Now, you show me people that just get up and go and do things for blackfellas just out of the blue. I don't know many. In fact, I don't know a lot of Aboriginal people working for government departments who will go out and do something for blackfellas unless there's money in it, right? And so, if you want to bring healing to people and you're willing to do that, why can't you be given an opportunity or a chance and also support, right? See, one of our biggest problems right now is we got the money to build it, right? But we haven't got the money to run it. We haven't got the funds to fully set up the infrastructure as we need it, right? We haven't got the funds. We're going to need a van, right? We're going to need a car, so we haven't got the funds for that. And right now, as I said to you, we have one wing built, right? And the body is where the office is going to be. Now, we haven't got the other half of the wing. Now, so we need the funding to do that. And we've contacted the former Aboriginal Affairs Minister who was going to have a conversation with her. That never happened. We've got, you know, some people don't look upon Aboriginal men who've exited prison being part of a justice problem. Well, given the justice system in this country over the many, many years has impacted in the negative on our community and our people, why aren't they prepared to be involved in the healing processes for our men, right, to stop them going back to jail, right? And the sad thing about that too is it costs over $120,000 a year for one Aboriginal prisoner in jail. That's how much they're worth in jail.
Wow.
Right?
Because all the prisons are privatised at this moment.
That's right.
So no wonder they always look for statistics.
Yeah, but like, why don't we heal our men? Why don't we get them back home in their families and their communities so that our communities can be strong again?
That's right.
Why is it that we have to beg, borrow and steal, right? And I wasn't going to say this, but I have to. How much in resources have been removed from the land since settlement? And, you know, I'm talking middle welfare.
Billions.
Right? And how much has been made on the land since settlement?
Billions.
Right? How much has Aboriginal Australia seen? Eh?
Nothing.
Well, we haven't seen very, very much.
No.
Right? And we hear a lot of people saying, oh, but you get this, you get free houses, you get free this, you get... The only
Free funeral packages.
Yeah, the only free things we get are the illnesses and that and the trauma that came with it.
That's
right?
right.
And yet, no one wants to be involved in the healing and the processes that make our families stronger. We live in a society that wants to take, and we've got the stolen generation, they're still taking our children.
I know, yes.
So you don't tell me that don't impact on families, that don't make people want to go out and do things to hurt themselves or to hurt others, right? And as I said, you've got these traumas going on, and the crutches are alcoholism, drug addiction, right, dom violence, right, and the list goes on,
Yes.
right? And so this is, we're hoping that with Warrigunya being set up, being built, being established, that we can be a part of the healing process, right? We don't want to be the healing process, we want to be a part of the process,
Yes.
right? We want to be an ally, right? Yet people look at us like, I don't know. And I don't know whether it's because I don't come from Gunai-Kurnai country. I don't know. But I do have connection to Gunai-Kurnai country. But for me, I'm like, if anybody wants to come and help us do what we need to do, right, whether they're black, white, blue, green, it shouldn't matter.
That's right.
Right? If we can get Big Mop to help carry the load, guess what? It don't weigh as much. Right? And that's what Warrigunya wants to do for men, to have men to be able to come there and to, yeah, they're doing some wonderful art inside. You've seen it.
Yes, I've seen some brilliant
too.
art.
Yeah, I see
Yes.
heaps of it. Right? So that'll be a place where they can continue to do that. There'll be a place where they can get into studies and other things, right?
Yes.
To be a place where if their children want to come and have a night on the weekend, then they can reconnect with their children. That can be done, right? And I always talk about two house families, right? In situations where their partner and them won't get back together, but if they have children, right? Well, in whatever house those children are in, they have to be safe. So if they have to be a two-house family, right? That's something we can be involved in as well.
That's great. And to be thinking of growing families together, no matter how we sort of have to be living together.
That's right.
You know, it's so important. And we don't really have these areas to concentrate on that.
And so, I mean, Warrigunya has many possibilities, right? It can have many opportunities, but our problem's always been this year. And that's not just Warrigunya.
Yeah.
That's any Aboriginal project or any Aboriginal business or whatever wants a community organisation or community service that wants to start up. We've never ever had the funding that we need. And there's always stats we have to answer, right? And yet no one wants to talk about the results. And the other thing that makes me sad is, you know, when you talk to governments, as I said about stats, they never want to come and sit down on the dirt and watch our kids run around playing and seeing that they're happy. They don't want to do that, right? Because they have an ideology that's separate and different to ours, right? And so, because when after settlement, right, the missions and that, they're all about divide and conquer and trying to turn us into little white people, right? Well, it don't work. No. And we know that from the history, the trauma and the death and everything that it caused, right? And the pain and suffering that our people went through, right? And yet we still struggle to try and get them to understand what we need and what we need to do, right? And so we're not saying Warrigunya is going to be the end all and the be all, but we are sure that given the opportunity, right, we can start to make some runs, right? We can start to see men be able to go back to their community and their families, right? And I don't know how to say this, but there's men who were at the birth of the conversation for Warrigunya, right, who have come out and gone back to their families and community, and they're in a better shape. And I'm not saying we had something to do with that, But I know the conversations about what do you want to do when you get out, you know, and what does it take. Because I always talk about the ripples in the pond.
Yes.
You know, so
yes.
you drop a stone in the pond and the ripples go out. And some go over there and do something, some go over there and do something, and some will go over and even do something. And I always say you've got to think about what your ripples do. You know, every action there is a reaction and an interaction.
Yes.
Right? Well, a woman will think about what she's doing, right? And what can happen from that. A man won't. A man will go and do something before we know he's knee deep. You know? So Warrigunya's got an opportunity for that too. But they're the conversations that we've been having with men before they leave for them, to think about what you're doing and what do you really, really want.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, and that's fantastic because you've got the base infrastructure and you've got the connection already with the men.
That's right.
And so now you're just needing the rest of the funding to finish
the building and have some funds to run it, all right?
Yes.
Right.
And have a central area where people know to come for healing.
Yeah.
You
And
know.
the other thing is too, this is a very important matter because I know for a fact that we have Aboriginal youth who are growing up right now.
Yes.
And there's talk in our communities and they talk to their mates about can't wait to go to jail, right? Where they think jail's a badge of honour, right? We've got to change that psyche,
Yes.
right? And so they're the things we need to have. This is why we need to have these structures in place where men can heal, families can heal, and families can then become what we used to be.
Yes.
Right? And I always talk about my family because I come from a strong family. And I talk about our family being a fortress of family.
That's yes. How many you got in your family?
Well, there's 6 of us. We lost one years and years ago.
Yeah.
But there's 6 in our family and we're a pretty strong and loving family. And most of our families are strong and loving families. But it's how we hold that together.
Yes.
You know, and how we keep that and keep that structure in place, right?
Yes.
And so, you know, like my son, he's 30, I think he's 30 now. I still tell him I love him, on the phone and in person, right?
Yes.
So, you know.
That's good because when you hear that,
Yeah.
then you know people are with you and supporting, hey?
Yeah, of course.
And then we need to do that at a community level.
Yeah, that's right. And so Warrigunya has a part in that too,
Yes.
right? And so Warrigunya is about healing this year and this year and this year, healing the man, right?
Yes.
So that he can be a part of the family again.
Yes.
Right.
And that's a wonderful thing. And also it will cause employment for other Aboriginal people in that area.
Well, even now the employment was, I'm glad you brought that up,
Great.
because the fact that some of the skills they're picking up in Fulham, right, they can further those skills when they come out. There's an opportunity if they want to, with education, like some of them might want to do get their year 10, right?
Certificate, yeah.
And then once they do that, then they can do anything. And some might just want to do a course where they can do computers or anything else, because there's many courses that are offered at TAFE. So there's an opportunity to say, well, we'll get you enrolled in a TAFE course, right? And if we're going to take you into Sale or down to Yarram or wherever, then we can do that, right?
That's
and
right.
so, with the right provisions, right? So when you look at that, there are so many things that could come out of Warrigunya.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But the other thing is, now we said that, in the conversations, it's always, if you want to come to Warrigunya, you got to work, right, when you come there.
Yes.
Because if you're not going to come out there and do what you have to do for you, then don't come out there and upset the place for other fellas, right? So, and one of the things, when I first heard about it was going to be built down there, I thought, it's a long way from Lakes Entrance and a long way from, the Gunai-Kurnai towns, right? But when I think of it now, if someone has a bad day, goes up the room and, packs his bag and says, I'm going, right, 15, 20 minutes down the road, right, he'll have all that time to think about am I doing the right thingy, and turn around and go back. So when I thought about that, I thought, well, that's a good, because then that also shows that they are learning, and they're learning about themselves, and they're learning about what they really, really want. And that's the thing about talking to them in Fulham. If you really want to come to Warrigunya, come, but make sure you want to.
Yes, and that you're ready to hear.
Yeah, that's right, that too.
Ready to try.
Yeah, and we even said that if they want to go home for a month or two before they come here, that's okay. Because some need to go out and sit down with family, and that's normal.
Yes.
Right? You know? And just be mindful when you do go home, that when you're ready to come back to Warrigunya, we'll be waiting. Right?
Brilliant.
So.
And that's a wonderful thing. We'll be waiting.
Yeah. If you want to come there straight away, you do that. But if you want to go home and see your father and your nieces and nephews and your sisters and your kids and whatever, then when you're ready to come. But if you want to come straight out there straight away, if you think you need to come straight away, then come. Right?
That is fantastic. Yeah. Have you got any last words you'd like to share?
All I'd say to this sister is that, you know, if you want to change for the better, if you want to, one of the things I realised is when I stopped the yarning and the drinking and that, right, was that I chose life. Because I looked at myself and I was one of the walking dead, right? And even fellas in jail, whether they realise or not, right, because they're not fully free, they're almost like they're dead, right? And I chose not to live like that anymore. I chose to want to be doing something that was constructive for my people, and something that made my parents proud, but also something that I could turn around and say to my grandkids, Pop loves you, right? And one of the things when I think about that, if you love your children and your grandchildren, then you'll do things that are right? Doing things that take you away from them, right? Take away the moments of joy that you can have with them. I mean, even though I live over here and there in Adelaide, when I go home, I'm able to go and see them, right? I don't get smashed, I don't get drunk, right? So I can remember the conversation with them, right? And when I tell them I love them, I'm sober enough to tell them really that I love them, right? There's no grog, there's no yarny talking, right? But also, they say, look at Pop, you know, and they understand that because they feel that love. You know, the thing about when you tell them when you're drunk or you're stoned, they don't know whether right now at the moment that's true or not.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
And so I suppose the last thing is I could say that Warrigunya's opportunity to get into that place where you can be who you're meant to be, right? Because one of the things I realise, a real man, right, does what has to be done, right? And they're the things that sustain, maintain and enhance life, right? And that's what our elders, past and present, used to do. Right? You ask Uncle Collie out there, he'll tell you, right?
That's
the bean
right.
paddocks, right?
Yes.
Right? Picking fruit and picking other vegetables and the potatoes, the spuds, right? Yeah. That's what they done. And they done that when, you know,
for the days to bring us through.
Yeah, but there were no unions, right? There was no compensation. And when they worked, mate, sun up and sun down, right? And that's what man to man is, right? And that's what the opportunity of Warrigunya, if you want to. But you have to want to for you and your family, right?
Yes.
Right? And one of the biggest things you have to learn too is you have to learn to love yourself. Because if you can't love yourself, you can't love others. Right?
Thank you, Uncle Alan Coe.
No,
so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you.
And thanks for sharing life because
thanks
it
for having
is
me.
full on.
Yeah,
yes.
Thanks for having me.
And from Darty Podcast, we wish you the best, and I hope that Warrigunya and Burran take flight.
Thanks, my sissy. And my love for Darty, all right?
Yes.
I love Big Al and his father and all the mobby, all right?
Darty Manwaro.
That's him, Darty Manwaro.
Thanks for
Strong
joining
spirit,
us.
all right?
Thanks for joining us,
Thanks,
Mr. Alan Coe.
Thanks, Uncle.
Brr.